Welcome back to College Football Addiction. Going to talk with Drake C. Toll of Locked On Big 12 about maybe some disrespect. Our video today presented by BetUS. We'll talk about them later. But Drake, first of all, before we get into anything real crazy or controversy or I try and stir the pot a little bit, Arizona State, you and I just haven't gotten a chance to talk about this since it went final. I know we're a little bit late here, but certainly didn't expect that dominating a performance from the Sun Devils and Kennedy Dillingham and the boys on Saturday.
Oh no, TJ! I'm not sure if we could have. I could have projected that kind of beatdown. I thought it would be 28-24 or 27-24. I think I said that on your show. And Arizona State. I'm wearing my Kachina jersey today to represent the old Coyotes. I loved that Kenny Dillingham's squad came in with the swagger that they did. That was the difference in this game. Iowa State was hey, we're going to try to meet you at the line of scrimmage, play some smash mouth football, and hopefully stop the run. And then Arizona State said, okay, we'll come out here with a kid who was redshirting that's going to jump on the scene and replace Jordan Tyson immediately in Gilroy and just dominate you, whether it's the pass game, the run game, the defense. We don't care. This was an Arizona State team that played with the swagger of a Colorado on Saturday in the Big 12 championship, and Iowa State couldn't keep up from actually jump.
It felt early, too. Like, okay, Iowa State has something here, really just in those first couple drives. Yeah. And then it turned pretty quickly once, I think Cam Scatterbo just broke another tackle as we're sitting here talking. But it did feel early like, wait a minute, this could be, I even tweeted it, like one of those old takes exposed that gets exposed really quick. Yeah. Hey, I've been watching the Big 12. You guys have been missing out. This is about to live up to the hype. Now, it did on one side, if we're fair. Arizona State held up their end of the bargain. But it felt early like Iowa State had a chance. Was the monster of Arizona State just too much, or like what went wrong for the Cyclones?
Yeah, Cam Scatterbo. That's the name Cam Scatterbo. And when it wasn't Cam Scatterbo, it was Sam Levitt making plays. I mean, that kid's arm is so impressive, especially for a quasi-freshman. And the thing that you mentioned there, TJ, that I want to hit on a bit, I said that from jump, it didn't really seem fair. That was the case when it came to Arizona State's offense bullying Iowa State's defense. It felt like, okay, now we're going to have to see a shootout if Iowa State wants to stay in this. Otherwise, they'll get boat raced. And what happens is while Iowa State was able very early on to match things up and the offense was clicking, at some point, Arizona State's moxie took over. They were the much better football team on Saturday. And you could argue from Jordan Tyson, who didn't play, to Sam Levitt, to Cam Scatterbo, there are NFL players on this Arizona State team that will make them a huge threat in the college football playoff and that just took Iowa State to the absolute woodshed on Saturday. So you saw the first drive, things would click for Arizona State offensively, and then after 2-3 drives, it was just overwhelming. Iowa State, there was nothing they could do. You could see when they panned the camera to Matt Campbell, he was lost. Once they got down by 3 scores, it was over.
Shout out to Kenny Dillingham and the boys. Not that they haven't already gotten enough of my shout outs, but they got up big against BYU, had to hold on. They got up big against Kansas State, had to hold on. They didn't take their foot off the pedal in this one. And they continued to pound the ball. They continued to make defensive plays. Obviously, the 3 turnovers in the third quarter are huge, but it's almost like they learned their lesson, right? Against Kansas State, BYU, having to hold back comebacks or hold off comebacks, and that didn't happen this time. All right, on the playoff, I do want to talk about that and making noise there. But first, with the playoffs, I went live as soon as the game was over, and I know you did too. And I immediately said this team deserves a top 4 seed. And I thought that based on the way they were playing, they really are playing better than maybe anybody but Oregon, hotter that, going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And the way they've played the last month has been really impressive. And we put such an emphasis on that. And maybe this is just my big problem with the committee and the format and everything anyway. Maybe I'm not trying to die on a hill of a 3 versus a 4, but I don't really understand having Boise State at 3. In fact, I'm not the ACC guy here, but I'd probably even have Clemson at 4 if we're just calling it what it is. And I'd have Boise State at 12 because let's just be honest with ourselves. Genty, great year. They've done what they needed to do. I don't know that I would have them at 3 right now. I don't even know that I'd have them at 4. Arizona State, Big 12, disrespect by being at 4? I'll get right back to the video, but first I do want to give some love to our friends over at BetUS. The bowl season is coming, the playoffs are coming, and you can bet on all of it over at BetUS.com. Use our code YouTube150, that's YouTube150 for a 150% bonus when you sign up using that code. That's on your first deposit. Your next 2 deposits are at 125% each. All of that up to $2,000. We appreciate BetUS for their support this season. And the betting is not done. Neither are the games. Make sure that you're using YouTube 150 when you bet at BetUS.
Yeah, two points here, TJ, to build off of that. The first one being, this is a Richie Bradshaw quote from Locked On Sun Devils, that this is an Arizona State team. When you compare them to Boise State, you ask the committee, okay, why aren't we above Boise State? Well, Boise State won more games. Okay, well, why are 9-3 SEC teams ranked in the college football playoff, this ranking above Arizona State? Well, it's strength of schedule. Which one is it? Is it wins or is it strength of schedule? In the case of Boise State versus Arizona State, it's wins. In the case of Arizona State being behind Alabama, it's strength of schedule. So can you tell us the criteria that you want? The other point that I would make, Army might be a better football team than Boise State, and they're ranked 10 spots lower than Boise State. Why? Because Boise State's only loss came in week 2, and it's their best win. Their best win is a loss. So past that, they started winning games. We'll keep moving them up the rankings. Army lost more recently, and that's what effectively killed the Army Knights. Are they the better football team? They very well could be compared to Boise State. We never gave them a fighter's chance because they lost late. Both teams have lost the same amount of games. One team, Army, played in a much better conference. This entire Boise State conversation is completely out of whack. I know we wanted to be nice to the little man, but the second that the orphan you brought into your home starts stealing money from mom and dad and taking away from the other siblings, that's a problem.
Yeah, it is. And it's just not, there are so many complaints that you could make with the committee and the format and everything else. But you're right. I've talked with several people about this on here, off here, wherever. They're able to, because they have 8 different criteria that are not ranked or weighted, they're able to do exactly what you just said. Have a strength of schedule argument for 1 versus 2, and then have a wins versus losses argument for 3 versus 4. And no one can call them on it, right? There's nothing you can, I mean, we can call them on it, but there's nothing that can be done about it because it's just, at the end of the day, they make the rules, they made the game, you live with it. And again, at the end of the day, does it impact things too much? I mean, I would argue it does. Now they're on Oregon's side. They have to play Texas in the second round, most likely. And so, yeah, I do think it's a big deal when you compare the way that the paths are going to go. And again, you and I mean, I know you love the Big 12. I have enjoyed the Big 12 immensely this year watching it. And there's a lot of good football that gets played there. There is a disrespect, and there is a thought of like, well, they just happen to be, it doesn't look, to me, it doesn't feel like Arizona State went out and took a playoff spot. It is, we had to put a Big 12 team in. Arizona State's just who happened to win that game, that meaningless game that happened in Dallas. And so, well, yeah, they're the 4 seed. That's fine. And the only reason they're the 4 seed is because Clemson won. Because if not, they would be the 12 seed. Like, let's be honest. They would, if SMU would have won, if not for a walk-off 56-yard field goal, Arizona State would be the 12 seed. And there's no way in hell that you could convince me that Arizona State is the 12th best team in the country right now. They're better, right? Like, I don't mean that as a shot. There's no way you could convince me that that's the case.
Somebody tweeted, the host of Locked On Alabama actually tweeted it out and said, you're telling me that Alabama and South Carolina and Ole Miss are out of the playoff for Boise State, Arizona State, and we're going to see SMU there too. And my response is, you mean the same Alabama that lost to Vanderbilt? And Oklahoma, the same Ole Miss that lost to Kentucky, that's who you're arguing for? I just don't. You're right. There's a lack of respect. And at some level, win your games, stop complaining.
Maybe with all of I do want to be fair to the Alabama fans. Maybe with all the transition with Saban to DeBoer to the playoff last year to Milroe, everything that's happened there, maybe they just don't realize that their loss to Oklahoma was actually an SEC loss. Maybe they're thinking that that's a Big 12 thing. And so that's where some of the, jilted feelings come in. I don't know, just subtle shots at Alabama because I don't know how many of them are watching here.
Arguably worse. Their loss to Oklahoma, if Oklahoma is a Big 12 team, is worse in the committee's eyes, no doubt.
Drake, I appreciate you for coming on, chatting with us a little bit. Last thing, and we'll wrap up this Arizona State one. Can they make some noise? Can they beat a Texas? Can they beat a Clemson in the second round after getting their bye?
Yeah, Cam Scatterbo in that offensive line will keep you in any game that you want to be in, and Sam Levitt can take the top off when he needs to. So I do believe that Arizona State's got a fighter's chance in the same way TCU did against Michigan. Can Arizona State go deeper than 2 rounds? We'll see, but they can beat anybody on any given Saturday. They have that level of talent, and the other thing going for them is momentum. They have more swagger right now than I think anybody else in college football. Oregon seems to be very business. Dan Lanning has mentioned that. Arizona State's playing loose with a head coach that fires his team up. And not to say that Oregon or Texas or Clemson are bad or should be scared necessarily. They're not scared. But Arizona State, Cam Scatterbo, you get him downhill, and they've at least got a very good chance.
Yeah, we'll certainly get you on closer to that game, closer to the first of the year to talk about it when we know who their opponent is.
Yeah.
But I know you'll cover them and the rest of the Big 12 up until that point. Where can people follow you and find more of your work?
Yeah, at LO Big 12 on Twitter, at Drake C. Toll on the same app, or wherever you find your podcast at Locked On Big 12.
Awesome. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate BetUS. We'll have to do this again soon.
Always.